Hey there, it's Ollie the Lone Boardsman, and today we're looking at Memoir 44, and especially we're looking at the different expansions for the game and whether you should pick them up and can kind of give you an overview because there's a lot of content for Memoir 44. So I'm just going to go from it's going to be a loose scale of whether it's essential to buy, whether you should get it, and with a kind of qualification of like, if you're interested in this area or you kind of want to go down in this direction, and then whether it's kind of skippable, basically. So we're going to look at first, we're going to look, of course, Memoir 44 itself. So I'm actually not going to show you the whole game on all the boxes because there's so many boxes for this game. I've actually had to break them out into I've actually thrown the boxes away mostly, and I've got them all in a storage system in the attic because I ran out of space for Memoir 44. I think I've got all of the expansions over many years, 20 years or so for the game's been out, and essentially I can't fit them all in the boxes, so I've got a storage system, and which I might give at the end of the video a quick run through of how I store it. But what I'm actually going to show you is each one is the rule book for each one, and just give you an indication from there. So we'll start with Memoir 44 itself. So this is the core game. You get Americans and Germans miniatures, and it focuses on the kind of Normandy campaign for the most part. So it's a great introductory to the game. It's obviously essential. You need to buy Memoir 44 to play the rest of it. It's a great introductory war game. It's you can teach it to kids. You can teach it to like a casual non-war gamer. I really got it. Kind of came out when like Euro games were in like massive vogue, and Memoir 44 was seen as like a kind of the war game, like a Euro game style, a war game that would sit on a Euro gamer's shelf. So you'd have your Ticket to Ride, your Carcassonne, and then you might have Memoir 44. It wasn't just this completely separate kind of entity. So yeah, I would say that Memoir 44 is just this like it's still, that's why it's been around for 20 years. It's this essential game for a lot of people, and I would say that you could just buy this game by itself and that's all you need. So what I would say with this though is that buy the newer version. I've actually got the original Memoir 44 box, but I don't have the refresh version, and the refresh basically is what I would buy now. It's got newer cover art, slightly better miniatures. They did something which I really like, that they, for some reason, the artillery in Memoir 44 is AT guns or anti-tank guns, and it always felt wrong to me. So now they've replaced it with a 105 howitzer or something, like a little grognard thing, but it always irritated me, and now they've replaced it. And then they've also added in a few small rules changes, like very small, and basically like some little counters to say whether you moved and shot, because often you forget, or a new player, you can kind of forget who's done what. So they've added that in. Now, if you already have Memoir 44, the original game, I wouldn't buy the refresh, to be honest, because it just seems too small an upgrade. The one thing I can think of you would do it is if you wanted to kind of go into like Overlord, which is the kind of bigger game with two sets. You could buy keep your original set and then buy a refresh, and then you've got like a mix of miniatures you could use, and you've got enough for Overlord. So that would be really the only time I'd buy refresh, unless you're a new player, when definitely buy the refresh. Okay, cool. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go through the expansion. So just to be clear, Memoir 44 essential. You need it to play anything else. I wouldn't just buy an expansion because you can't play it without a lot of fiddling around. So the first one I'll do is I'll bring across this one. So we'll bring on the Memoir 44. I think this is the Desert and Winter Terrain board, and it came. What we've got here is the Blitz rules that it comes with, basically. So they came with some rules for like early war. So basically boosted the Germans, made them more effective in the kind of 1940 campaigns. So should you get the Winter Desert board, I won't show it to you right now, but it's exactly the same as the normal boards, Memoir 44 board, but it's just got a winter or desert look and feel. And my answer would be it's not essential, but and only buy it if you are basically getting the Mediterranean pack, which we'll come to in a minute, or the Winter Wars pack, and potentially or the Eastern Front pack. You could get away without them. You easily could. It would just make everything look a little bit weird, especially on the desert maps, I think. So I would definitely recommend it if you care about aesthetics, but if you don't, then it's not an essential purchase. And I think these Blitz rules were printed elsewhere. I can't remember exactly, and even if you didn't, a quick look online, you'd find them. They're only a couple of lines. So I would say, kind of nice to have, but not essential. Okay, so, and then we're going to move on to the terrain pack, which is one of the early expansions. Now, this is a weird one, this one. It's really cool. It's got a load of really interesting stuff in it. You've got just to go and give you an example, you've got things like trains, barracks, cemeteries, and a really cool fortress. Like, that's awesome, I think. But basically what it comes with is a load of extra tiles. So it comes with special terrain tiles for all sorts of different areas of Memoir 44, like deserts, Pacific, winter I think maybe some winter. I'm not sure about that, but at least for the deserts and the kind of green terrain. And it comes with a couple of extra tokens and special things like minefields and things like that. And special forces, and it comes with a couple of quite interesting scenarios that make the leverage for the terrain. But one thing I would say is that it's quite complex. There's a lot of extra rules that come in here, and you might only use, say, one of the terrain tiles once in all of your games. So what this one really is for is that person who likes to create scenarios, enhance existing scenarios, or the completionist, because what you'll find is in some of the other expansions you actually need the terrain pack for certain scenarios. Now what you could do is, like, say for example, I'm going to give an example, Eastern Front, you didn't have one of the terrain tiles from the terrain pack, you could just proxy it with something else and say it was this. But for a completionist, the terrain pack is definitely needed, and if you want to make your own scenarios, I think it is essential. But for most users, I'd say it's not essential, but a nice to have. It's certainly not a wasted effort to buy it, but maybe not your first expansion, I would say. Maybe look at one of the kind of theatre expansions before you move on to the terrain pack. Next one, we're going to look at Eastern Front. Now this one is a really, really cool one. And it has some of the most strange rules I've ever seen in anything like this. And it really showed the creativity that Memoir 44 was going at that time. Richard Borg was just, I really feel like maybe that was like the peak of Memoir, the kind of late 2000s, where each expansion was like full of fresh ideas. I mean, it always kind of were, but obviously momentum has dropped off a bit from now. So the Eastern Front brings you into the Soviet versus German theatre, the Eastern Front, World War II. And it provides a load of really interesting, cool scenarios, brings Russian troops on. You get a nice little T-34 and an artillery piece as well. And what was particularly interesting about this one is that you get it's kind of a shame I haven't got it in front of me now. Maybe I'll show it in the video on a still or something. But you get this cool little poker chip with a commissar, Russian commissar on it. And what that means is that when you play your turns on the Eastern Front as the Russians, you have to kind of play your turns one turn behind. So you put one of your cards under this poker chip, and it means that you're basically having to think of your turns two ahead. And this is to represent the Russian kind of lack of command and control early on because of the purges and of the officer corps. What a mad idea. It works really well. So often on the scenarios, the Russians have better equipment, but the command and control is a mess. So you're always having to kind of try and deal with the swifter Germans, and it makes some really fun scenarios. What I would say is that can be quite confusing to a newer player. So if you've never played Memoir, I probably wouldn't start with the Eastern Front with a new opponent unless you're playing the Soviets, basically. So if you're like the owner of the game or the more experienced player, you play as the Soviets, because it's a bit confusing. Like, oh, play the game this way and then also delay your turns. But in general, some really cool scenarios, like really represent the brutal nature of the fighting here. There's a lot more casualties, like grinding through buildings. And what I'd say as well is that this one is quite nicely supplemented by the urban combat cards, which come in another expansion, which we'll get to later, one of the battle maps. But if you can get hold of that one, it's kind of frustrating that it was in a battle map, not just as a separate expansion, the cards. But anyway, by the by, this by itself is a great expansion. I would say it's not essential, like obviously the core game is, but if you have any interest in Eastern Front, this is like a top tier. Buy it essentially from me. Okay, now we're moving on to the Mediterranean theatre, and unfortunately my real book here has got a broken spine, which I can't even remember how I did that, but anyway, it doesn't matter. So this one is probably the one I've played the least, I have to say, and that's not to sort of like disparage its quality. I think it's just more because where my interests lie, I've got a bit more into the Mediterranean theatre in later life, where my grandfather fought, but I basically, you know, at the time it was actually quite, I think I was struggling to get hold of this copy. It was like out of print for years. But anyway, the Mediterranean theatre, you've got British troops, I believe. I'm just gonna double check that, but I think, yeah, it's the Brits you get. Trying to think, yeah. Yeah, certainly the Brits. I don't think you get Italian troops with this one. But anyway, yeah, you've got the Brits, and they this one is a good one for a couple of reasons. So it benefits from the desert boards, and the scenarios and the rules for it make it quite an open battlefield with a lot of movement. So you often have far less on the board in terms of terrain for the scenarios, and what that means is that yeah, movement's quicker, but also you get another little advantage. It's a lot quicker to set up the games because there's far less on them usually, because you just got a couple of wadis or you know, an oasis, and your tanks are kind of moving between hills, and it creates this kind of cat and mouse as you kind of moving your tanks onto a hill, firing down, then moving them away. There's some cool like minefield based scenarios as well, like kind of El Alamein breaking through. I think this has El Alamein in it, but you know, kind of, you know, a British kind of doing set piece attacks across like you know, really difficult entrenchments and things like that. So I really do think this was good, but my experience with it is a little bit less. So I would personally rate it just slightly below the Eastern Front, but that's more of a preference for me and my experience with it and lack of like nostalgia because I haven't played it as much. So if you're into the Mediterranean theatre, Italy or North Africa, this is, I think it focuses mostly on North Africa, to be honest, rather than the Meds. But I'm sure there are loads of scenarios online for like Sicily or Italy. But this is just, yeah, no reason not to buy this one actually. And if you've got the desert board, a double reason to get it. Okay, moving on to Pacific Theatre. This one is probably my favourite of the theatre expansions, and that's just simply in some ways just because I think that for me the Pacific Theatre is my favourite, well, not favourite, that's the wrong word, most interesting theatre of World War II. I don't know, it just really fascinates me for some reason. The brutal kind of nature of the Japanese you know, way of fighting, the islands. There's just something about it, you know, like I'm really into kind of science fiction, you know, things like the novel and films Starship Troopers or like the Forever War. This idea of like going to this kind of like alien hell, kind of almost a paradise, and then there's this kind of hidden enemy that's popping out. I think there's a reason why a lot of that science fiction was written or inspired by people who fought in the Pacific. It's like it's the closest to, you know, to going away and kind of fighting this impossible, unknowable enemy. So the Pacific Theatre just, yeah, it fascinates me, and they really knocked it out of the park with this expansion. So you get the Japanese forces, you've got the Japanese army soldier, and you've got the lovely little Hargo tank. I love those little tankette. It's not a tankette, but little tanks like that. You get an anti-aircraft gun, which sort of makes sense for the Japanese because they were often fighting in static positions. So it's not quite as silly as having the anti-tank gun for the core game. But I really like the look of the Japanese army soldier as well in this. The way en masse they kind of look quite imposing. And the rules for the for the Japanese troops in this are really cool as well. They're really aggressive, so they come at you like a real swarm. I've just done recently a little playthrough video of a couple of like campaign for the Guadalcanal, using the campaign but using these rules, which you can check out. But the way the Japanese come at you, they do a banzai charge, they get extra attacks, they can move to and battle if they're charging. It's terrifying, so you have to like deal with this waves and waves of infantry. Now, some people I think probably would find that a bit repetitive, and it's a bit one note. If you're playing the Japanese, you just need to attack and attack and attack. I'm an aggressive player, so I love it. One thing I would say is that the Marines have a rule where you get to order an extra troop on your sector. Now, it works. It makes sense to sort of explain the Marines as a bit more flexible and like able to deal with difficult situations. What I do think is a little disappointing is that there's it's just a little, it doesn't feel like the leathernecks Semper Fi. It just, you would need something a bit more gung-ho that makes you, when your Marines kind of do something heroic, you feel like there's just something extra toughness or grit. That would be a rule that I would give them, but I think it was probably too similar to the stiff upper lip that the British have, so they maybe went in a different direction. But maybe I'd house rule something to give it a bit more interest in that sense. But the other thing I really like about this one is that all the terrain tiles are absolutely awesome with this one. Like they look great. The jungle looks amazing. The airfields look amazing. It really looks great on the board once you've set up like a beach map and everything. So love this one. Probably if you've got any interest in the Pacific, get this one. And if you can get hold of the what is it? The jungle fighter cards. Is that the name of them? Sorry, there's a combat card set for like jungles, and that came in another battle map, one of the more recent ones, and that really enhances this one. You get things like spider holes and stuff like that, or like camouflaged, and yeah, it really kind of adds a bit more spice to the game. But yeah, I would say if you've got any interest in the Pacific, this is the one to get. And another nice one is I think you can avoid having the desert or winter board with this one. So if you have no interest in that, you could just buy the core game and the Pacific Theatre expansion, and you don't have to worry about any other expansions or the game looking a bit weird. So, kind of a nice kind of, if you wanted to add a bit, just buy those two and you've got two great working games. Finally, we're looking at the Winter Wars for the core expansions, kind of theatre expansions. And what this one does is it brings in it focuses on the Ardennes, so the counteroffensive by Germany in 1944 on the Belgian border. So this one is a later one. It came out quite a few years after the other ones, and what it kind of is good about it is it brings in a lot of the stuff that wasn't in earlier expansions. So, Breakthrough, the equipment pack, it kind of has a feeling of a game that's mature, that knows its audience, that has, and so as a result, I almost feel this is like an advanced expansion. It's an expansion for someone who has played quite a lot of Memoir 44, knows how to play it, and wants to get a bit more out of it. Because, for example, it comes with combat cards. Oh my word! I really wish the Pacific Theatre expansion just came with the, the Jungle Fighter cards, or the Eastern Front expansion came with the urban combat cards. That would make so much more sense, but we don't have that. But this one does come with its combat cards, the winter fighting combat cards. I might be getting the names wrong for the combat cards, but I love the combat cards. They just add a little bit of flavour, because Memoir 44 is just quite a, oh, that's great. It's so simple that makes it easy to learn and play, but it can feel a little bland if you played the other Command and Colours games, which are the Napoleonics or Ancients. It just they add a little bit more tactical detail, and sometimes it feels like, am I even playing a World War II game when everything is so basic? Add the combat cards and maybe a few bits of equipment, and then suddenly you're playing a more of a, it's not advanced squad leader, but you're playing a more of a World War II feeling game, rather than the World War II Euro game that sits next to Ticket to Ride. It's now a proper war game. You've kind of leveled it up. You've got your kid or your mates into Memoir 44, and now you can make them into real war gamers. So as a result, I wouldn't probably say this is the first expansion you should buy. You should play this if you've buy this one if you've played the game a fair bit and you know what you like and what you don't like. But what I really found with this one is that you get all the cool, like a lot of equipment pack stuff. So if you never got the equipment pack, which we'll come to later, which was out of print for years, you could easily buy this one. You've got a lot of the tokens you need, like mortars and machine guns, which kind of these special equipment. I really like them. I think they just make a bit of nuance. So just to explain that quickly, like if you have an infantry unit in Memoir 44, it's just a generic infantry unit that's kind of maybe representing a battalion or something like that. But if you wanted a more small scale battle, let's say like Dick Winters attacking the position in the beginning of Band of Brothers when it was at Breakhall Manor, you're going down to a smaller level, maybe individual weapons, and then Memoir 44 doesn't really represent that very well out of the box. So what you can then do is with this expansion and some of the other ones, just add in these kind of special weapons like the machine gun and the mortar. So they don't add much rules overhead, but they make it feel like, okay, I've got a machine gun section, a mortar section, and maybe some anti-tank, rather than just kind of this generic infantry that fires 3 dice. So it kind of, I think when you zoom in, this provides a lot of utility to make the game feel a bit more nuanced. And also, I think if I remember, I have this one I didn't play as much, but the scenarios were really good and well thought through, and kind of used some of the terrain pack, roads especially, like you getting up, moving up and down roads became key, and I think it's got some breakthrough scenarios as well. So really, if you got for example, if you're really into the bold, let's take a profile here. You're a proper, I don't want to disparage more casual players, but you're a proper grognard. You just want a nice, easy game that isn't going to take you hours to play. Okay, what do? You buy Memoir 44, your core game. You buy maybe the terrain pack, and you pick up this one and the winter board, and then you've got like a semi-advanced war game that you could use to that could sit alongside your combat commander, stuff like that. So I would say this is a buy it, but buy it if you're a more experienced gamer and you've got an interest in this kind of theatre. But as an overall expansion, I think this is one of the best ones because it had everything you needed with it, rather than it being split out across hard to find battle maps that were had to be bought on eBay for ridiculous prices for many years. Okay, right, we're almost at the end of the little expansions now, so we're going to go on to the bigger ones. So first of all, we're going to look at Breakthrough. Now this one came out a bit later on, and kind of following on from the Winter Wars, which I just described. I would say that Breakthrough is a advanced expansion. So it's just one of those ones where I wouldn't buy this if you were just starting out. Now what it does is it adds like these larger battle maps, which are twice as large as the Memoir 44 board, like you can see it here, and basically they add depth to the map. So number one, you need a lot of table space, which can be difficult. I mean, Memoir 44's got a relatively large board as it is, and Breakthrough doubles it up, so you need a big table. So that's the first caveat. But what does this do for you? Well, it actually just makes the game a lot more interesting, because often you find with Memoir 44, because I think you've only got 13 tiles one way, and then maybe 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 the other, 9 the other. So you've got 13 by 9. That actually is quite limiting. Now, it means there's a lot of really cool scenarios, but often they feel they're over before they really get going. So you're like, okay, I've got about to this really cool breakthrough. I've kind of got all my troops in position, and then someone sniped an infantry unit at the back of the board, game's over. Makes it for a quick game, but what Breakthrough does is it allows you to go, okay, well, I've got stage 1 of my offensive, like, on this one, Coldstream Hill. I've got to break through this position, but then the Germans have reserves. They're going to come up, And then so we're going to have two battles. We're going to have the first initial battle at the contact line, and then we're going to have a battle as the reserves counterattack. Now it makes the game longer. It makes it a bit more of a grind, perhaps, but it makes it for a lot of fun. And this one also comes with a breakthrough card deck, which I think it better deals with the scale here. I'm just trying to remember exactly what it does, but if I remember correctly, essentially the breakthrough cards kind of give you a bit more flexibility about who you can move. So because on a bigger board, you don't want to have troops sort of stuck for long periods that can't activate. So I definitely recommend the breakthrough deck. I think it certainly enhances the game. So this one is it's not on my essential or must buy list, but this is like a nice advanced expansion. I'm not saying you to keep away with it, but I would only buy it if you've played a lot of Memoir 44 and you really enjoy it, and you want to take this up with a more advanced wargamer who is your opponent is a bit more interested in longer games that might take a couple of hours rather than like an hour or so, or an hour and a half. You want something that's going to be a whole afternoon. So with that caveat, but I like the breakthrough board. I think it really adds something, and it's a really cool way that they just made a already good game and sort of showed that Memoir 44 is a proper war game, to be fair. Yeah, brilliant. I think I'm going to double check, but I'm pretty sure the breakthrough deck came with this board set. Yeah, I think that's probably right, but I will just double check that to make sure, because this is one of the problems with this, is that Memoir 44 splits. One of my biggest criticisms of it is they split content between expansions, so you had to like buy widely just to get everything you need. Okay, now we're moving on to the new flight plan. So it comes with scenarios and the rules. Yeah, so the air pack, the new flight plan. So this, yeah, as I said, this replaced the air pack. Now the air pack was this kind of older version. It was like impossible to get hold of, but almost every scenario in the game would come with something saying using air rules, but air rules were just not available because no one could get a hold of this kind of this like legendary air pack that was just never printed enough for everyone to get a hold of. It was going for silly money years ago, and it's now probably impossible to get. And it was also kind of, I never played it, so I can't give it my personal review, but most people said it made the game too complex, and it was just overbearing and just made a simple game just get too bogged down in rules. So the new flight plan basically gives you these, you get a load of kind of cool plane miniatures. They're not painted. Personal gripe, I don't like whether they're not painted. I don't want to paint Memoir 44 miniatures, honestly. They're not detailed enough, and so having a kind of slightly greyish plastic, it doesn't appeal to me that much. But they are there, and they're nice enough little miniatures for what they are. And so you get your planes, and you get like 3 stands for these planes. Now really what the game it should have come with is 6 stands, one for each plane. So 3 for your opponent and 3 for you, because you get a fighter, bomber, and bomber for each side. And it is cool that there is a single plane for each for each faction. So you get like 3 for the British, 3 for the Germans, 3 for the Japanese. But the lack of stands mean you're constantly having to swap around your fighters and bombers, and I just found that quite tedious and annoying. Like, not massive, but okay, I'm bringing off a fighter, okay, I need to put on a stand to put on a bomber. It's just irritating. Anyway, these are gripes with this one, but it is quite a good expansion, I think. I've only played it a few times now, as I've started playing the game solo a bit now. But what it does is, what's clever about it is you get the planes on, and they have ammunition that you drop. Just to kind of, so if I could give you an example. But yeah, each plane comes on the board and they have ammo, and then you kind of do runs and you drop your ammo down, and then you roll for each ammo that you've dropped, so like bombs or machine guns, and each one has a slightly different effect. And they're powerful, but not too powerful, so they're not wiping out whole units in one go, but they can do damage, especially with clustered up units. And it's got some nice cards, like very similar to the combat cards, so you don't have to like learn a whole different system. And when you draw a recon card in Memoir, you can now pull a combat card and a air card, which has turned the recon card from being the worst card in the game to one of the best, because you just get all this cool stuff with it. And what I found was it didn't dominate the game, but what it meant is it stopped one of the kind of more irritating advanced tactics in Memoir, which is I'm going to fight with my unit and then I'm going to withdraw it right behind cover, well behind where you can't get it. Now that is kind of tactical, kind of makes sense, but it can lead to a game where someone's being quite unaggressive and leaving all their weakened units at the back of the board. Now what the air pack allows you to do sorry, not the air pack, the new flight plan allows you to send a fighter or bomber to try and do like a interdiction raid behind enemy lines, and they can take out that lone weakened unit if they're lucky, and then that's it. And you can even and then you've won the game, and it stops this kind of cat and mouse rubbish. The other thing you've got is what does it do? Yeah, you've got cards for your own troops to fight against, like anti-aircraft, to fight against the planes. And what's particularly great is that the planes themselves stay on the board. They don't leave. And I think that is particularly great, because what it means is it doesn't feel like a separate game with the air plan. Once your plane's on the board and you've spended a card, you can then just order it around like any other troop until it runs out of ammo. And it can use things like airfields to resupply and all this. So it's a great addition. I think it's maybe not perfect. The components, to be honest, they look slightly as though they're from a different game to me. I don't know what that is. They were produced a lot later after all the other games. So it's probably a different market or different factory. I don't know. But there's something about the machine gun or bomb markers that almost feel like they're not from Memoir 44. Don't know. It's a small thing. But anyway. Overall, very good. Not essential, I would say. So I'd probably put this lower down the theatre expansions. But I would say if you're interested in like flight or want to add a bit more interest to your game, like definitely pick it up. But it does add a little bit of fiddliness to the game. But overall, a smart expansion. Okay, so now we're looking at the equipment pack. So this one was one of those ones where I got it when it first came out, but it soon became impossible to get hold of. So this one is a kind of a nice one. You get lots and lots of different equipment, and what that means is like miniatures for all the different units that were kind of cardboard pieces, like special weapon chits. So you get an absolute load of them in here. I can't try to remember what exactly you get, but vehicles, tanks, like artillery pieces, and they kind of replace a lot of like what you would use just cardboard for before, basically to mark troops up. Tiger tanks, the lot of it, and you know what, it is really cool. But what I would say is that the miniatures are okay, but they're not coloured, which is something that I found really irritating. And because if it's a German tank like a Tiger, then if it was coloured, it would make sense because only the Germans are using it. So why is it not grey like the Germans, or is American tank or gun? Why is it not green? And so what I ended up doing was painting them, but back then I was young, I was foolish, and I sprayed them with a load of cheap paint, and they had something reacted and that stunk out my entire box, and I never quite got them. I think I tried to strip them, reseal them, but they've always kind of bugged me, and I've like, but I shouldn't have to do that. I should have just got a load of nice pre-painted miniatures in a box, or pre-colored miniatures, because Memoir 44 to me is a game about getting it quickly on the table. It's not a game of like advanced. It's not, I'm not playing a proper miniatures game. Not proper, but what I mean, like a painted. I'm not playing Flames of War. I just want to get my game on the table and start playing. And I don't want to have a load of like uncolored plastic. So I always found that a bit annoying. And as a result, although there's some really cool scenarios in here and there's some really good, like the equipment's cool, I think you could easily represent a lot of it with counters. That you've already got from the from Winter Wars. You get an absolute shed load of special weapon assets that are in this equipment pack. So It's not actually needed too much, I would say. Uh, so I would say this one is a nice to have. I think it is now available, but I would say you can probably maybe skip this one unless you feel you need to be like a completionist. Another little gripe, it was in like French and an American, or sorry, American English, French and English. But the rule books are all split, so some of it's French, some of it's English, and I just find that quite annoying. The other expansions came with French rules in them, and you almost had to throw them away, which I didn't like either. But at least you had your English book to read. And well, I find with this one, I open the page and I'm like, "What am I reading? Oh, it's French," and then I have to skip to the English part. Small gripe, but it's just something. I think it's just because it's a French company, something they did to save costs. But I almost wish there was a French and a UK language, not UK, English language version. So and now we're looking at the D-Day landings. Now this is a really cool one. This one comes with a really great like big, I don't know what you call it, like folder, like thick material, like kind of cardboard holder, um, or canvas holder. It's difficult to describe exactly what it is. But it allows you to hold like these big maps that the D-Day scenario comes with. It comes with a load of like breakthrough maps, like they're paper maps, but they're nice quality. But what I found was I could use this holder to actually store my Overlord maps, which I'll come to. So yeah, we'll come to the Overlord stuff in a minute, but Overlord, yeah, Overlord scenarios. But the D-Day landings basically is a series of breakthrough maps that allow you to essentially play the entire of Omaha, sorry, the Normandy landings, Sword Beach, Juno Beach, Gold Beach, Omaha, and Utah, and the airborne drops all in one mega scenario, which is mad. Like you could play this, this is like an event game where you could have 12 people, maybe not 12, but a lot of people all playing a map each and like all joining together. So that would take a very long time. It's more of like, a conference thing, but each of the individual breakthrough scenarios it comes with are really cool. And like, I love the idea of like, you start on the beach, you break through on the beach, on Omaha Beach, for example, and then you've got to push inland. This scenario is not over, and the Germans are trying to bring in their counterattack. So I played it a couple of times, and it is really good. But I would say for this one, this is one of those ones where you don't need too many other expansions because you primarily just need the. I'm not sure if you need 2 core sets. I'm not sure on that one, but at least you would you don't need like loads of other expansions because it's kind of using the default Normandy kind of setting which comes with the core game. But yeah, they're really fun missions. They take a long time, and you're unlikely, unless you're really kind of enthusiastic, I guess, likely to do the mega game. But the idea that you can is great, I think. And I'd love to see it done. Maybe I'll go to an event one day where they do it. So once again, I think this is like, if you're really into D-Day and the initial Normandy kind of landings, then this is like a kind of a must buy for you. But for most people, I think this is like a not essential, but I would rank it above the equipment pack and probably put it alongside the air pack in terms of like almost like the second tier of things to buy. Okay, so we're getting there. There's a long list, but so this one is, we're looking at sort of a double pack here. So we've got Overlord. Now, what is Overlord? Overlord is in Memoir 44, where you basically put 2 core game boards together and you play out a scenario with multiple people. So rather than just like you and your opponent, you essentially have a leader on either side, like a general, and then they have field commanders which they're ordering, and it creates an entirely new dynamic to the game because what it allows you to do is essentially, so you have 8 players, so one leader, one field commander for each left, right, and center, and then one overall leader. And what they do is they issue the orders down, and then the individual field commanders can't confer. So there's a chain of command, and it is awesome, and it's so good when you're playing with friends. Like, it creates all this stress and conflict. It's a completely different feel, and it works really, really well, and it isn't massively complex, because essentially for the field commander, they're just playing a normal game of Memoir 44, but their cards are being decided by this field commander who's having to prioritize. And if they keep getting garbage cards, can only look up the command to blame their leader. It's brilliant. Now, initially, there's a lot of ways you could get into this, so I'm going to try and the best I can go through. So you could just get 2 copies of the original Memoir 44 and the new or the refresh, or one of each, and play it that way. And there's some scenarios in that book. Now, the problem with doing it that way is it takes ages to set up, because you've essentially got to set up 2 whole boards, and so it is quite slow to set up. So there are a couple of like ways that came extra for this. So one was you got this Memoir 44 Operation Overlord set, and what this one comes with is it comes with specific cards to run Overlord and make it a little bit simpler. And I think they clarified some of the rules a little bit. Now, this one's, I wouldn't say it's like controversial or anything, but it's probably not essential, because you could play Memoir 44 Overlord with just a normal double pack of Memoir 44 cards. So you've got your 2 core sets, you mix them up, and then you've got your Overlord set. But for a lot of people, I think it does make sense to have this, because you just have a nice neat deck of cards. It has the field commander symbol on the top. It's nice and clear who's getting ordered, and like if you can order. So it's sort of it's designed for Overlord, but it's not essential, because you could play with the 2 core sets with little issue. So I would say this is focusing on the Operation Overlord expansion, which doesn't really come with much apart from the rules and the cards. Not essential unless you're playing Overlord frequently, and then I would say it's a nice to have little bonus, but compared to most expansions, you don't get a huge amount. And just to be clear, you don't need this to play Overlord. And then what we're looking at here is the different expansions for Memoir 44 Overlords, called the map packs. Now, Kalkin Goal was just one of these map packs, and there were 5 in total, I think, and they came in 2 series. And I love the map packs. I think they're awesome. They look cool. They kind of got an old school kind of feel. They're in this kind of big paper boxes that you have to kind of crack open. You kind of have to break the box to open it, like paper pack. But it's kind of got like an old school 70s or 80s wargaming feel. And you've got these pre-printed maps that come with that. And those just save all that setup time. They're nicely done. You just need to make sure not to rip them. I store them in my D-Day carry case that comes with the D-Day set, because I threw away the packs. So what I'll try and do very quickly is run you through, like, just at the top level. Maybe I'll do a separate video on these in detail, but just the different ones that are there, what I'd recommend, because there are 5 sets. So first of all, you've got Hedgerow Hell, which was the first one. It was very hard to get hold of for a while. This one, basically, you do the Battle of Normandy, including the beaches. Oh no, it's not the beaches. It's basically the breakthrough into the Bocage. So it's lots of hedgerows, and then you've also got the Cadets of Sommar, which is a 1940 kind of German breakthrough in the Ardennes style scenario. And it comes with a couple of jeeps, similar to equipment pack stuff, but it's a great one if you have just the core set. So if you've got 2 copies of Memoir 44, and you've just got green and grey Germans and Americans, get Hedgerow Hell, because you've got everything you need to play straight away. And if you want to, you can get the Overlord set, but you don't need that. But that's a great one to start with. Now, if I remember correctly, Hedgerow Hell's quite grindy because of all the hedges, basically. So it can be a bit of a grind, but still a good one. So I would say not the best scenarios, but requires no extra kit. So a good one to start. And I think it is now available. And then you've got Tigers in the Snow, which is a absolutely awesome one, because number one, it comes with tiger tanks, and you've got a really cool scenario, I think in the Ardennes, to basically take out these tigers, and the tigers are really hard to kill. So I remember playing with some friends and like really struggling to, you have to like roll 2 grenades in a row or something. Awesome scenario, definitely worth playing. And then even better, that one has the market garden scenario, which is just genius, because essentially like puts the 3 bridges that you're crossing like lengthways across the board. So someone on the, I think the right flank for the allies will be Field Commander 1 will be trying to break their tanks up into Holland, and then at the top you've got the paratroops coming in and landing at the bridges. So you've got to try and secure the bridges whilst bringing up the tanks, and like obviously that's really difficult because you've got counterattacks everywhere. It is amazing. It's one of the best scenarios of any game I've ever played. So Tigers in the Snow, if I prefer it to Hedgerow Hell. Get it if you have if you've maybe got yeah, I think that works as well. You can just have that with the core sets. So brilliant. Sword of Stalingrad. If you've got Eastern Front, get Sword of Stalingrad, because number one, it's got really good scenarios. There's like a big tank battle one, and then there's also like Rats in a Factory, which is just grinding through factories, and you know, tractor factory and stuff into Stalingrad. Really good one, absolutely brutal. And then you also have the kind of complexity of the, I think this one uses you have the Soviet command shit that sort of slows down orders and all that stuff. So it's even more difficult as the Russians. Even better, you get combat cards with this one. So you get the urban combat cards, which add a lot of flavor to the Stalingrad maps. So I would say if you have any Eastern Front interest, you know, buy the core game, get the Eastern Front expansion, get Sword of Stalingrad if you want to play a big game. Disaster at Dieppe, another good one. I've not actually played the scenario, and I haven't played Tobruk either. So basically, what I would say is that like this one, I just haven't got the experience to play, but it doesn't bring anything that like it's got some nice half tracks and some jeeps, and I think the battles are really like interesting. If you've got Mediterranean theatre, this is definitely the one to go for, because you get Tobruk as the big scenario that will leverage your, and most people might have 2 normal boards, but they certainly don't have 2 desert boards. So having a big desert map is great if you're playing Mediterranean. So I'd get Disaster at Dieppe if you're a Med player. But I can't really say if it's the best one because I haven't played it. I've got it, but I haven't really played it on Overlord level. And then you've got like Kalkin Gol, which was this is the Russians versus the Japanese at the beginning of World War II, or maybe it was just before, I can't remember. But this one is really interesting. It's got loads of interesting, it's got like a mini campaign. It's got breakthrough scenarios. It's got like multiple miniatures. And so I think if you're getting like bang for your buck and the kind of historical interest, the Kalkin Gol one is the best. So if you've got the Pacific expansion, get the Kalkin Gol as your expansion pack. I haven't played the big scenarios here, but I'd love to. So I would say, but it's a later one as well, so it feels a bit more polished. So, and then finally you get Through Jungle and Desert. And once again, I don't think I played those scenarios on that one, which is a shame. But it does come with in Jungle and Desert. It does come with combat cards for the Pacific and the desert. So like so it basically rounds off the combat cards. So you now have them for every environment apart from beach landings and hedgerows, which would be nice if they produce some for that. But so I think if you've got Pacific and Mediterranean, Through Jungle and Desert becomes a nice Overlord one to get. And I would say you want to hunt down the combat cards. It is annoying that they're spread out, but I love the combat cards. I have all of them, and they, to me, improve the game and make it a little bit more flavorful. Okay, so that's all of the those expansions. I'll try and put some images on the video so you can see which ones I'm talking about. And then last but not least, we get to the campaign books. Now, and what was I going to say with Overlord? I would say get it. It's worth getting, and like, but it's not essential. if you have a big group. If you don't have a big group of people, it's not worth getting the Overlord stuff unless you're trying to get the combat cards, which it might just be worth it for that alone. Campaign books. So we've got campaign book 1, and I'll just bring on campaign book 2 as well. So I love these books. These are amazing. They're like, to me, like almost like a collector's item. I got them when they came out, and I think they're very hard to get hold of now. It's just a shame they haven't reprinted them. But yeah, they come with basically Memoir 44 scenarios. The book 1 is Normandy focused, and also I think has some Russian kind of campaign scenarios, I think. Just reminding myself. Yeah. I think it's got no, that's it. It's got like the early war threat, the 1940 campaign. So that one's really good. Really good battles in this one, and it's got some kind of quite meaty campaign rules, which you could say are overly complex, but they're really cool. Like you get to bring in reserves and hold them back, and keep them scenarios. There's some like what if stuff. It's a bit like it adds complexity. There's almost the campaign rules are more complicated than the actual Memoir 44 game in some ways, and I think that's maybe why they release these kind of quick campaign scenario rules, so you just kind of don't have to do all the admin. But if you actually get around to do it, and I have done it, it is really good. Like it's well thought through. And then I've done the number 2 is the Pacific Theatre, and this one I've recently done a solo playthrough of the Guadalcanal campaign, which I really enjoyed the scenarios, and some of these used scenarios. There's some new scenarios in here, but they also use scenarios from the older expansion books as well. So you might play like one unique scenario, but then just jump back to one of the core books. But one thing I would say is that this is like older, like it's quite hard to find, and also some of the rules, like especially with the air rules, have not been updated. Like there's these air sortie tokens that you have to kind of make up how you use them with your new flight plan, because no one's going to tell you how it's done, because it's all references the old air pack, which is no longer in print, and they just haven't updated this one because it's out of print. And I imagine it's probably just one of those things where printing costs these days make this too expensive to produce. It's a shame, but there we go. It's nice to have if you can get it. So if you can get a copy, I'd strongly recommend the campaign books. Like it's a personal recommendation, but they're not essential, and only get them really if you're playing someone and you want to kind of run through all the campaign, like run through a campaign with them, like you're going to play the same opponent again and again. And I would also say get it if you're a scenario completionist. If you want to have like a lot more Pacific scenarios or Normandy scenarios, or especially like early war 1940 ones, these books are absolutely top dollar for that. Okay, so that is all of them expansions. That's been quite a longer video than I expected, but there's a lot to cover. To summarize, get Memoir 44, the core game. Then if you're interested in a theatre of war, pick up that theatre expansion. Once you've done that, maybe pick up the terrain pack if you want to fill out some of those scenarios that you can't play without it. And then if you're getting into the advanced game, then start looking at Breakthrough if you're looking for longer, more advanced scenarios. Maybe Winter Wars as a kind of starting, I think Winter Wars is a good just like all-rounder. Just kind of get that one if you're just moving into advanced memoir, I'm going to call it. So yeah, advanced memoir is Breakthrough, Winter Wars. We're looking at the equipment pack as a maybe. Don't necessarily need it. Flight plan as a maybe, but a stronger maybe to pick up. And Overlord is like, I would definitely push Overlord to almost essential if you're playing with a larger group. Not the Overlord pack itself, but the Overlord battle maps, I would say. And you probably need to pick up more than one box. Now, as I said, I think something I forgot to mention was the Overlord pack comes with these kind of not very nice, but little chits to use if you don't have a second copy of each expansion. So it works perfectly fine. So buy Overlord if you don't have enough boxes of stuff for all your things. And I don't want to over elaborate any further. There's a lot to go through. Get into Memoir 44. Stuff seems to be a bit more back in stock again, so pick it up while you can. Pick up the new refreshed box, and just start playing, because it really is a joy. It's probably the board game I've played the most, and probably overall I've got the most joy out of it of any game I've ever played, just from the amount of hours played. So thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed. Any feedback is welcome. Just leave it in the comments. Lone Boardsman out. Just finally, thought I'd show you my storage solution. So sorry about the reflection. It's daytime here. So use a fishing tackle box for the infantry. Sorry, the units. Actually don't have all the Germans in this box. It's a bit disorganized at the moment. But I try and put most of the core pieces in fishing tackle boxes. You can see here are some of the expansion units here. And then I use these like nice little clip boxes here for the tokens. So I use the bigger boxes for all the bunkers and stuff, mix them all together, and then I use some of these boxes for like all the circle tokens, because you get to a point where you just, which expansion they come from doesn't really matter. You just put them into one big collection because you get loads in each one. And then the shield ones as well, I stick them all together. I probably have 2 boxes of shields because there's so many. But yeah, I'd rather than trying to split by expansion, just it's like a headache. You're never going to work it out. So just have it by token type. And I think that's pretty much it. Oh yeah, finally tiles. These are great, these ones. So I have the tiles in little boxes by expansion, so I don't get them all mixed up, because when you have all the expansions, you're looking at hundreds of tiles for this game. So yeah, this one is terrain pack. I've done it with tiles with roads, but yeah, you could use your own sorting methods. All right, cheers.